In this demo, I'm going to walk through cutting out the Ibex head logo from a sheet of vinyl. So the first step is to make sure I have a knife defined in my tool library. So I can select the tool library, and in this case, I do already have my knife defined, but let's go ahead and define another one. So I'll select Add Tool from the upper right, which brings up the New Tool dialog. I'll select Knife from the tool type and then give it a name. Call it Demo Knife. You can see at the bottom here, it's been added to my tool library. It's in millimeters, so I'm going to switch to inches and change the max cut depth to 0.25 inches, which is what my knife is. And then the offset here for this knife is about 0.16 inches. And when I update that, you can see that the green line is updated to show roughly what that offset from the tip is. So this looks correct. So I can click OK to save it to my tool library. And now I can select the contours and open the knife toolpath type. I'll clear out what I'd done before. And my first thing I want to do is add the knife. So in this case, I'm going to add the knife that I already had, what I named drag knife. And now I need to set the depth. So vinyl is very thin, basically has no thickness. So the important thing here is just to set it so that the knife will go all the way through the material. So I've defined my material in the drawing as 0.1 inches. And so to cut all the way through the material, I just need to set this to 0.1 inches. And that'll make sure that this cuts down to the top of my spoil board. Now, if I want to cut just a little bit deeper to make sure that I cut all the way through the material and maybe a little bit into my spoil board, I can bump this up. I can set it to 0.105 inches. That'll make sure it cuts through the material about 5 thousandths, just to make sure it has a clean cut all the way through. Now, in this case, for vinyl, again, there's not much thickness, and so I don't really need to lift to avoid tearing the material. So I've just set my inside and outside lifts to 0. Go to the cut parameters and set my feeds and speeds. I'm going to set my feed rate to 100 inches per minute, rapid to 300, plunge to 50, and set spindle to 0. And that should be good. And I can click apply. And now we can look at the tool paths. So it's going to look a little wacky at first with all of the extra pivots here, but those are correct. That's just the machine compensating for that offset of 0.16 inches that I programmed into my knife. And that's aligning the tool to then make the cut. And so when we cut this out, you'll see it actually follows the original contour precisely. One thing you'll notice here on entry is there's kind of a tool alignment move. Ibex assumes that the knife will be pointed in the positive X direction at start. And if I'm starting from nothing at the start of the day, who knows what orientation my knife is going to be in. So something I like to do is just drop a little circle right here. This is a sacrificial circle to cut out and align my knife before I cut my real parts. And so I can go back to the toolpath ribbon, select that little sacrificial circle, drop down on the knife. I didn't save this toolpath, so I'm just going to apply it from the recents. And there's that same exact toolpath. This is just a sacrificial little cutout, align my knife, and then start with the real toolpath. So Control-Shift-P zooms me back out so I can see the whole plate. I'm going to fill the plate with as many of these as I can. And there's a few ways to do this, but the way I'm going to use is I'm going to move this outside the plate, go to the Home tab, and then select Multi-Copy. And with the fill material option selected and my spacing set correctly, it's just going to make as many copies as it can within the material. That looks pretty good. That's ready to go. I can close out a multi-copy, and now I can delete this because I have the copies I actually want to cut here. So the last thing I'm going to do is prepare for output. I can go to ordering, and this allows me to double check that the ordering is what I want. You can see that it already looks correct the way I want it to. It's starting with my sacrificial circle down here in the bottom left, and then moving in rows through the parts. And I can double check that by expanding the ordering options here and the additional options button. And here I can see all of my options. And the important one here is the objects. I want to do rows, and I want to do left to right. Let's see. And my tools, I only have one tool, so I don't really need to worry about that. Hit accept, and it adjusted a little bit. So now it's going left to right through the rows. And importantly, it's still starting with my little sacrificial circle in the bottom left here. So apply that, and then I'm ready to output. I have my machine selected. Like I said, I'm going to surface at bottom and then click output. In this case, my drag knife isn't in the tool changer, so I'll go in there and add it to position 5. Select that, select OK. Now I'm ready to create output. Give it a name like demo and hit save. One last thing I'm going to do before I output to my machine is double check this in Quick Plot. This is our backplot utility. Can navigate and open my demo file, select that, take a quick look at it. This looks correct. I can see all the same cuts I was just working with. There's the sacrificial circle, the 6 copies of the head. There's the pivot points. I can rotate and see this. The controls are the same as an Ibex, so I can navigate around and take a look. Once I'm satisfied with that, I can close out of that, and I'm ready to cut. Here's the machine cutting out the logo with the drag knife. And here's an example of the finished logo cut out of vinyl. That's it for this demo.